Lucina, can you please try saying something?
Okay, I can't hear her.
Nope. Neither do I. Okay. Let's wait a minute. Lucina, oh yeah, she's getting ready. Hello, Lucina. Great to see you. Can you please say something? For now, I can't hear you. No, we still can't hear you, unfortunately.
We can see you, but we can't hear you, Lucina.
Can you please make sure that your mic is on? Okay. Lucina, we'll give you one more try, and then we will simply start.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you.
Oh, yes. Now we can hear you perfectly. Wonderful. Excellent.
Okay. Excellent. Glad.
So can we then start?
Yes, we can start. I'm more than happy to be able to present Ron, and I would like to thank you, Ron, for accepting our invitation to have a webinar for IATF in Poland, especially that you have been our friend for such a long time. Ron is a freelance English language teaching consultant, and at the same time, he's a teacher trainer. He is from my region, and that is Kraków, Lesser Poland district. He is a native speaker with more than 25 years of experience, and he's always been up to date on school policies and guidance that should be given to teachers of English at all levels, from A1 to C2. He's an educational consultant for all kinds of language teaching schools, and he also assesses and evaluates effectiveness, levels of performance, and all kinds of school improvements that schools are working on. He judges the quality of teaching in language schools, and he's fully aware, while doing so, he's fully aware of modern language teaching principles. Additionally, he runs teacher training workshops, not only in Poland, but also in other European countries, and he's ready to manage diverse groups of English language teachers. Moreover, he's a Cambridge examiner. And not only does he cooperate with teachers, but he also writes on providing materials for teaching. And I would like to give you one example. The book that he wrote with Justyna Krztoń, which was published in 2015, and which is titled Speed Up Your English, and that is vocabulary at work. And this is a very interesting book because it's aimed at learners who need English in their workplace and who wish to improve their vocabulary quickly through fun and engaging exercises. And while studying this book, the learner will find a lot of information about the realities of labor market, the relationships, and the way it works. While conducting his seminars all over Europe, Ron, as I have already mentioned, has been cooperating with IATF Poland for many years. And just to give you one example, at our latest conference in Gdańsk in September this year, he presented a workshop motivating the 21st century learner, some tips. And at the end, I would like to quote what Ron says about himself. He wrote, "The teacher, the friend, the solutions provider. My motto in life is aim for the moon. Even if you don't have it to the moon, you'll be among stars. I get high on knowledge on any given subject. As they say, I got too much life running through my veins. And I forgot to add, wrote Ron, I hate unsolved problems." And another tweet that Ron produced is teacher trainer, intelligent use of tech tools in language teaching. I like to think of myself as a solutions provider. And just one more from Pace. He enjoys investigating the complexities of English grammar and has a special interest in the use of technology in language teaching. In his free time, he enjoys traveling and debating. So, Ron, tradition versus innovation. Is there really a choice? Welcome.
Thank you very much, Justina, for all those lovely, kind words. Okay, so there is not much else to say on that subject. So can everyone hear me? If you can not hear me, could you just put something in that chat box so that we know that, okay, okay, good. So someone says yes, so I'm assuming everyone can hear me. Okay, first of all, let me thank everyone to have found the time on a Saturday. I'm sure there are lots of other things that you could have done here on a Saturday, but you've come here and I feel honored to be here. And thank you again, Lucina and Marcin, for making this possible. Okay, so can you all see this Okay, guys, can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm extremely sorry, but I don't know how that happened. There was a power failure here, and everything just went blank. So I needed for the power to come back, and then my router to go back again and reboot, and then here I am. Okay, my apologies for all this. Let's get started. Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, so back on the topic. It says what motivates the learner. Now, why is this? Why am I trying to put so much stress on the fact? All good? Okay, thanks. On the fact that motivation is important. Because I'm sure you've seen as teachers that if the student is not interested, is not going to learn. And no matter how much a teacher tries, how good a teacher is, how good the materials are, if the student is not interested, there is no learning that can go on there. So our job is not really, you can't learn for the student. Student has to do that himself. So our job is to try and motivate them. Now, before we can actually motivate them, I think we need to look at the factors that demotivate them. And once you can identify what demotivates them, then you can, it's a new word, I just came up with it, how to undemotivate them. And that's what this is all going to be about. I'm going to get some ideas from you, and I'm going to share the ideas that I have. And here we go. So the biggest demotivating factor in all the research and everything that I have done, I may be wrong, but I have a lot of statistics to show that, is what I call fear. Fear is the biggest demotivating factor in students. Easy to say. What are they afraid of? What kind of fear are we talking about? The first, by the way, you guys, if you have any ideas, just put it in the chat box. I'm looking at it all the time, so feel free. Okay, I really would appreciate any kind of feedback from you guys as we go along. So the fear that we're talking about here, three kinds of fear. Fear of teacher, which is quite natural in a lot of cases, especially at university or anywhere where the teacher has a position of power, where the teacher can stop the student from getting his index book signed or anything of that kind, or stop him from progressing to the next year. And then we have fear of peers. And finally, and most importantly, the fear of failure. And we're going to look at how we can overcome those fears so that the students are free in what they do, in how they learn, and how they express themselves. Okay. So why a fear of the teacher? Because the teacher is the person, it's usually a fear of punishment. And we'll have a look at what kind of punishment the teacher can actually give. And peers, it's about ridicule. And then we are going to look at other kinds of consequences. So let's look at, okay, hello, Joanna. Fear of teacher. Now, this is something that we all do as teachers, sometimes knowingly and sometimes not really realizing that we're doing it, which is discouraging comments. I understand that there are times when students, the learner really gets on our nerves as teachers. We've been trying to say something, he's just not interested. He's playing with his phone, doing something else, looking out of the window. I don't know about you guys, but I've had a lot of that experience when learners are just not interested. What do? If they're just not interested, we kind of get fed up. We give them a couple of tries and then we say something discouraging, something sarcastic. We ask them if everyone is okay, things like that. Doesn't work because we're looking at a student and we're trying to blame the student as someone who has ADHD, someone who has some other problem. The problem is with the student. We don't look at it as a problem with us. But if you look carefully, why is the student not interested? Or is it true that the student is not interested? Maybe, most probably, the student, if he's looking at his phone, he is interested, just not in what we as teachers are doing. He's interested in his phone. And why is that? Because the phone offers him something more interesting than the teacher. So you are now in some kind of a competition with the phone. So giving passing comments which are sarcastic are not going to help. If you say something like in schools, for example, a typical thing is, you're not going to pass your exams this way. Or in junior schools, I'm going to tell your parents. That does not help, because punishment, it has already been well documented. Punishment doesn't work. It just increases fear. It does not encourage them to do something. They'll do something because they're afraid of the consequences, but they won't do it because they want to do it. And this is exactly the reason why a lot of people, for example, in Poland, probably not your generation, the earlier generation, who had to learn Russian, can't really speak Russian because they were forced to do it. So forcing does not go with motivation. The other thing, and it's a favorite of a lot of students and teachers, is that, okay, you've done something wrong, you have 2 extra pages, A4 sheets of homework to do. And this is something I've seen in a lot of countries where there is a special box with extra punishment exercises. I even have a picture. I don't have it here right now. I mean, this is amazing that you have extra punishment exercises that you hand out to students who've not been behaving well. And by not behaving well, what you really mean is that they haven't been paying attention the way you want them to. So, and the other thing is, what is the effect of all this? You will find the same student probably not playing with their phone, probably not looking out of the window, but at the same time, not doing anything, not participating in the class, not participating in the pair work or group work or whatever you do. They are very kind of passive, which is what we call, they simply switch off. They're there like furniture. And obviously, in that situation, there's no learning going on. Now, so what can we do about it? Here are some ideas. And here are some ideas that I have. I would welcome more from you. The first thing is, try not to use the word wrong, even if it is wrong. This is very discouraging. A student who's a weak student, let's say, this is usually a problem with weaker students. A weak student, when he hears the word wrong once, twice, 3 times, this student is going to switch off, because this student has low self-esteem. That I always make mistakes, so I'm not going to open my mouth. So this is an experiment that I've actually done in class, which is, instead of using the word, just the word wrong, you could say, well, that's not entirely right, or that's not completely right, or that could be improved a bit, instead of saying flat out, it's wrong. So this is one of the things, don't say it's wrong. Secondly, peer correction. There's a lot of theory out there about peer correction. Yeah, it's great. But the problem with peer correction is you are kind of singled out. Other people are correcting your mistakes. So you're that poor person who doesn't know, and others know, and they're correcting you. So yes, peer correction is a good thing, but I have a feeling that it could be done in a slightly different manner. And I'm sure a lot of you already do that, which means maybe do the correction not one by one. As a teacher, you can note the mistakes that they've made, note the ones that you haven't accepted, and then put them on the board and say, let's see who can correct it. Instead of saying, well, Tom said this, can Peter or Joanne or someone else correct that? You are putting them in a situation of confrontation, in a situation of conflict. They're not going to like this after the fifth time. And the weak student, and you will see in a classroom, it's always the weak students who are being corrected by the better students. So it becomes kind of routine, and they don't like this. They're not going to say it, but they don't like it. So when you're into peer correction, the best thing is no naming. And then we have this, the one who's weaker, who needs this extra, something extra. And a lot of teachers do that. It's a very good practice. Some extra homework for, or some extra assignment for Tom, because Tom needs it. Great. But give the student some kind of independence. Give the student the chance to be able to do something himself. There's no problem if you give the assignment with the key. It shows that you trust the student. You tell the student, do it yourself. If you can't do it, or if you find you can check it from the key, if you still don't understand, I'm here as teacher, come to me and I'll correct it. But give them that chance so that they also know that it's not about doing homework, it's about learning. Because if it is only about doing homework, they'll get someone else to do it. They will copy it, they will download a key for that from the internet. Everything is available there. And you don't know whether the person learned it or not because the homework is all perfectly right. So give the key, make a copy, give the key, and show that you trust the student. You think the student is mature enough to do that. And I'm going to actually play a little game with you if I can share this screen. Now, I'm going to share screen. Please write in that text box if you can see this screen that I'm going to share. You all know this. It's something, it's not exactly, it's something like Kahoot, or actually it's quizzes. I'm going to play a game. Please write in the chat box if you can see that. And it'll only take about a couple of minutes. And I want to show you what I mean by don't single out. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, can you see the screen? Please write if you can see the screen. Okay, great. So humor me. Use your phone or something and go to this website and put down this number as your game code. We're going to play a very simple game, which you probably play with your students. It's not the technology that I want to show, but I just want to show what I want to mean by not singling people. How many of you use quizzes or Kahoot? You can write in there because I can see the two of you have written that you can see this screen. Okay, great. When you play this game, do you put it up on the board with a projector? Okay, well, okay, we have 3 people, 4. That's great. Okay, a lot of people. I'm going to start the game. Here we go. Okay, the game is not that important. These are 3 stupid questions that I put up there. The point is, I want you to look at this screen, and what do you see? And this is what they tell you to do, both with Kahoot and with quizzes, that you put it up on the board, you have ranks. Now here is the problem. If you can see here, you see Benyo and Yana and Dave Spongy. All these guys have everything right, but they don't have the same points, probably because Benyo had a faster connection. That's a bit unfair on students. Why is this person... Okay, let me just stop the game. Okay, I'll just do end game. Okay. Okay, that's... Okay, let me switch off the music from there. Okay, great. Now, the point here that I was making is... oh, well, where did this go? Okay, the point I'm making here is when you play that game, it's great. People are really interested in everything. But it kind of puts up your name on the board, and everyone can see. If you're good, you're proud of it, you're first. But what about those who are not that good? What about those who don't come first? It kind of puts them off. They don't want to play this game because they know they'll be at the end of the list. So my suggestion here is don't put it up on the board. Play the game as much as you want. You can play it on your phone, you can play it on your laptop, but don't put it up on the phone. You can always declare the winner, but you don't have to give a whole list of the losers. Because once you do that, they feel singled out. And they say, all right, this is a game which is good only for X, Y, and Z. It's not for us. And next time you're going to lose them. So you play that game, don't show their names. And also it's not very fair because they do it on timing. Someone has a faster connection, someone has a slower connection. So what I'm getting to is if you look at the points at the bottom, you need to have a fear-free classroom. The students should not be afraid of the teachers. The students should look forward to coming there and interacting with this teacher. It shouldn't be the teacher that they're scared of and they say, oh, we have a lesson with this guy today, we don't want to go there. And also, if you give, for example, we talked about the extra assignment with Key. Yeah, the nicknames, but okay, I see that Christina says they've come up with nicknames. Yeah, but you know, in my experience, I know who Gucho is, even if it is not his name, because you can see from that way, and they usually know each other's nicknames. So if they don't, then it is great, or that's a very good idea. I tried this once, that I gave them names. I had a whole group of cards, and I gave each one a card, and they had to write the name that was on their card, and no one knew who had this name. So yeah, if they don't, the point is don't put the names out there if you're showing them the board. It's a bit of extra work if you want to make cards. If you don't want to do the extra work, just don't put it up on the board. That's all. Okay, let's move on to our next point, which is fear of peers. This is something that I'm afraid, or my research shows, is not something that we look very carefully at. In England, I see a lot of attention being put on this factor now, but this is something I have seen in every single classroom that I've been to. There is always that one extra smart person who wants to show how good they are and how bad the others are. Now, if that person is alone in doing what they're doing, it's a problem, but not such a big problem. But once that becomes a group of people, then group dynamics come into play. And there is that one poor little person who feels bullied. Bullying doesn't have to be just taking your lunch money. Bullying could be, and you can see it during pair work, during anything that is a whole class activity or anything. And bullying has a direct effect on the self-esteem of the learner. The learner soon starts believing that I'm no one, I cannot learn, this is not for me, someone has forced me to come here, and they usually drop out. If it's a private language school, they're losing business. If it's university, I remember, for example, I know Jagiellonian University has over 35% of dropouts after the first year. And it's the same thing. People just think, oh, this is not for me. And a lot of this feeling comes from that bullying in the classroom, which is other students. Teachers try their best, but other students pass some comment, or they make faces, or they sigh, or they go, oh, come on, not again, kind of things. This is absolutely not conducive to learning. So if learning is not happening as a teacher, it becomes your problem. Plus, bullying in any place is not. Again, the learner switches off. The learner's only aim is to get through the 90 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever. Yeah, I see that someone has this problem in their class, and it's a very common problem. If you look carefully, you will always see, and teachers comment. I see in the teachers' rooms there's a saying that, oh, Magda doesn't open her mouth at all. True, but we need to look at why not. Is she afraid of opening her mouth? Do you see her talking outside with other people? Is she generally quiet, or she just switches off when she comes into the classroom? So that is a problem we have to identify, but we are here to look for solutions. So what are the solutions for that problem? As we discussed, again, anonymity. We don't want to put names to everything. For example, if you're doing peer correction, I don't know if any of you do it, where you have writing or other stuff where you exchange the papers and you give this one to A's paper to B, B's to C, and so on, and they need to correct something and put the correct versions of something. Again, this is something without names. Don't put names. You might give them numbers, but we don't want, and don't tell A to give it to B, because then they know whose it is. They will find out in a lot of cases themselves, but collect all of them and then just like dealing out cards, just give it to them. Group work and pair work. The importance of group and pair work cannot be overestimated for several reasons. First of all, it removes the fear of the teacher. You're talking to a peer, so even if you make mistakes, no one is going to yell at you. Okay. But the other thing is, if a group or pair makes a mistake, then other groups of pairs are not going to single out one person. They're going to look at that as a team or a pair. And there is strength in numbers. You're not facing everyone's ridicule alone. And they may not do that because you're not the only person. You have another person in your group or pair. So group work, pair work. And in fact, I have seen that if you start with pair work and then get two pairs to work together, which comes into group work, you're basically increasing their confidence. But if you start with just big groups, then you will have some silent members, because again, if you have a group, there are group dynamics. There's one guy who completely controls all the other, and someone who may have something to say doesn't end up saying it. So this is something, it is better to go from pair to groups rather than groups to pairs. So make it bigger, and then they can exchange ideas. You can say, okay, you from this pair talk to this guy, and then we can have a group discussion in that. The other thing is, if you're brainstorming or even in pair work, the teacher is hopefully monitoring, which is, I know it's a cliche, you're supposed to go around and listen to what they're saying, help them with any vocabulary problem while they face it. The idea of this monitoring is, of course, because not everyone needs the same help with the same word. If you do everything as a class whole group work, then you don't have the time. So you can pay individual attention to groups or to pairs. Okay. So, and you hear an idea which seems totally absurd. The idea is not to make a face and not to laugh at it. Encourage. You should tell them that if you think your partner's idea is not good, you can't say it's not good. You have to give reasons why it's not good. So that encourages A, more speaking from the language point of view, and B, better interaction between the learners. They need to explain to the other people. And sometimes, if they get really heated up, you might notice if they're really into it, they'll start speaking their L1, publish or something. This is good and this is bad. This is bad because you've been told they must use target language only. But this is good for you as a teacher because it shows that you have generated interest. They're so interested that they don't want to be stopped by language limitations. This is then your job to guide them back to the language because you've already created interest. They're motivated to talk about it. That's a very good thing. The other thing is, if you do that and you need to change pairs, you cannot have the same pair or same group every lesson. If you change pairs, you will find soon that they're talking to each other about stuff nothing related to the language or what you're teaching. They're socializing. Maybe they're still not dating or going out for coffee or dinner together, but you will see they're talking about each other's jobs, or they're talking about what happened at school. And the classroom can become a social meeting point. Now, if you can manage to do that, it's great success. They're simply motivated to come to the classroom, even if they're not interested in it. They come here because it's a place where they meet friends. If you can convert your classroom into a meeting place for friends, you've done a great job there. And they will, and they know that there are some rules to go to this club. You have to perhaps do some homework. You have to prepare yourself because there are going to be topics that you're going to talk about or some grammar points, and it's better to know. And they will do. You will see how your homework rate goes up and every other thing. I have people emailing to me if they're not able to come, and they really feel sorry about this. So, by the way, you'll probably see that in all of these tips, there is one which is like 3 dots. This is for you to fill because I'm sure you all have some really great ideas. Okay, so we've covered fear of teachers, then we have fear of peers, and the next one, if you remember, was fear of failure. This is probably the worst. Fear of failure, it covers all other consequences. And I have broadly divided it into 2 groups. Failure, the consequences that are at home. This is usually for younger learners whose parents are angry if they don't get a good grade. There are parents like this. I try not to be a parent like this myself, but at times I am like this. It's something that's with parents. All parents want their children to do well, and if they're not getting A grades all the time, then parents sometimes, I think more than sometimes, they show their displeasure in different ways. And this consequence could be getting grounded, not having access to their cell phones or computers or all kinds of things. So they're afraid that if they don't do well, there are going to be some serious consequences. Now, they're not teachers, you're teachers. So when they are defining what is doing well and what is not doing well, there is a problem because they're not the professional. You're the professional here. You're the person who decides if they're doing well or not. But they take it, unfortunately, that is the system. You have testing and you have grades. So for them, it's just a grade system. A is good, C is not so good. And if I get an A, I can get some more pocket money at home, or I'm allowed to go to a party on Friday. If I have C, all that is gone. So they look at it very black and white. Or some people come to learn the language because they've been sent from their companies. So they're company people. And there is always a string attached. If someone is paying for your course, they expect you to do some things. For example, if you need to get a certificate, if you don't get that certificate after a certain period of time, then they're not going to pay for your course or something else. Or maybe it's some kind of promotion that depends on how you do it. So there could be lots of other things, and they really, really, really want to do it, and they're afraid of failure. Now, when you have this fear of failure, it usually leads to desperation, and we all know about that. And I'm sure we have all had this experience when we were students. The first thing that you see is they start cheating. They have little crib sheets, or I don't know what technology says today. They have earphones. I know that universities, at least Jagiellonian University, does not allow you to take an exam with headphones, or even people who have long hair, they need to tie it in a bun so that your ears are exposed and we see you're not, there's no hodgepodge going on there. I don't know if you have had the same kind of experience. Why is that? Because they want to pass the test any way they can, hook or crook. So learning is no more their aim. Their aim is to pass the test. And because their aim is to pass the test, it totally kills their creativity. They're not going to take any chances. They're not going to, it's like your driving test. You're with the instructor and you're going along, and there is a very slow car in front of you. You can easily pass that car, and it's not a continuous line. You can do that. No one's coming from the other side. But hey, you don't want to fail your test, so you just slowly chug along behind that car without doing that maneuver because you're afraid something can go wrong. But this is language learning. It's not a driving test. We need that creativity. We need people to come up with new ideas. We need people to express themselves, and we need people to show some creative thinking and some critical thinking. This kind of fear of failure is sure, absolutely sure, to go and kill that kind of creativity. So what do we do about that? Okay, so it's the first thing is we do not talk about failure in the class. The role of the teacher is not to talk of failure, but of success. If it is failure, we can try to pass it as partial success, not complete success, but we don't call it a failure because the word failure has that demoralizing effect. I know the quotation, failures are but pillars of success, but it's all very good on paper. No one personally actually believes this. So try to remove the word failure from your classroom vocabulary. That was good. It was successful. Well, maybe partially successful, not completely, because we have some room to improve over here, here. But don't say it was failure. Whatever the result, it was well done, well tried, and so on. It gives encouragement. And failure kind of looks like an extreme thing, that the whole word failure, you failed, now go back to your cave and don't come out again. No. Everywhere you get a second chance, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth. I think they should get a chance until they are successful, they're really successful. Because that's the whole point why they're coming to you. One thing is an exam, that they're preparing for an exam. They will be judged anyway in that test. But if you're talking about teaching the language or teaching them to use the language, how does it matter? Some people pass their driving test the first time. Some people pass it the third or fourth time. If those of you who are familiar with Headway Intermediate, I think, the John and Liz Source book, there was a woman, there was a reading piece where there was a woman in the UK who passed it in her 53rd attempt. So if you can take that many times, you can actually land up in an English course book. But the point is, you have to aim for success. And if you're not successful first time, just don't say you're a failure. We have another chance to do it. We can do it. The next thing is, teachers somehow are very autocratic. They don't want to give responsibilities to students. This is now, especially with the newer generation who are called the digital natives. They do everything themselves. They don't even trust teachers. If you give them something and you say, this is what it means, they will check themselves. If they've heard it somewhere else in some other context in a song, they will check it themselves. Trust them. Give them that responsibility. When you do, for example, any reading has a vocabulary exercise usually attached to this. Why? Pick out the words, tell them to like underline 5 words, or you can do it in groups or pairs or something, and you have some kind of classroom corpora. And then divide these words. Okay, you guys check the meaning of this. You can use anything you want. You can use Google, you can use dictionary, and then report back to the others. And we'll see. And most of it they would have solved by themselves. And they have this feeling then, hey, I did it myself. I didn't really need a teacher to that. The teacher's job is to just guide them along. The teacher cannot learn for them. So a lot of it, people who use flipped classroom, I don't know if any of you do that, it's the same thing. Give them more responsibility. Get them, for example, if you give homework or written assignments or something, don't collect it yourself. Get someone who will do it for you and tell you who has done it, who hasn't done it. So they feel a little more important. They feel you're treating them like mature people, not like little kids. Especially adults don't like being treated like that. They're all probably successful people in their own jobs or something. And here to come to a classroom 90 minutes or twice a week, and suddenly you treat them like they're little children. They don't like it. Anything they don't like, we'll switch them off. The next point is, I think as a class, we teachers, myself included, we're not generous enough with appreciation. If we don't appreciate what they're doing, or even if they're wrong, if we don't say that, it's not entirely correct, but I'm really happy the way you were thinking. That's the correct way. That's the way you need to go. It increases self-confidence in students. And the biggest thing is they learn that if they make a mistake, no one's going to call the cops and send them to get arrested. Nothing happens. The teacher just helps them. So they're not afraid to make mistakes. Now, if you look at, for example, a speaking activity, you'll see, and if you, I don't know if any of you play that just a minute games, where you pick up a topic and you have to talk about it for a minute without repeating any of the words. And it could be basically nonsense, but nonstop speaking. This is supposed to make them think in the language. Now, you will see, and there is another rule that there cannot be a break of more than 3 to 5 seconds, depending on the level. So if they go, they lose. Now, the question is, why do they do that? Most of them are doing that because they're translating in their minds not to make a mistake, because making a mistake is a cardinal sin for them. No, as teachers, we need to make them realize that it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, it's good to make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you will not learn. So don't be afraid. There's that barrier that it should break down if you're making mistakes and if you're not afraid to make mistakes. Okay, so we've gone through the 3 fears. And the question is, what more can we do? Now, these are some things that I'm sure most of you do. The first point is know your student well. I'm not asking you to hack into their email addresses or go to your office and check things like that. These are small, simple things. If you meet your student outside in the corridor, talk to your student. Don't feel that you can only talk to your student inside the classroom. Talk to your students not about necessarily what you are going to do in class, but general things like, is it very cold outside? I see that you're dressed for winter, or so on and so forth. Or are you interested in winter sports? I'm talking about winter because it's pretty cold right now outside my window. Things like this. And be a good listener. Pick up points about your students, because this will help you later. If, for example, I can give you a personal example. I had a student who never said anything. He was just quiet all the time. And once he was sitting outside the room before the class, and I met him and I asked him, okay, so how are you? You've come a little earlier. And the general answer was, Okay, do you have any plans for the weekend? What are you doing? And he mentioned that he was going to watch a football match. And I said, oh, so you're interested in football? He said, yes. And he told me that he was a big fan of Real Madrid and that he traveled to watch them. Okay, so we had some small exchange, but I put it in the back of my mind. And next time I read something interesting about a Real Madrid match where something happened, I just told him, "So, this is what happened." And he was so happy that from that day he started talking because he had this feeling that someone listens to me and cares about what I like and I don't like, interest. It was actually quite shallow on my part because I didn't know much else about him. So this is what teachers can do, know their students well. I don't mean all their secrets or anything. For example, if someone says is late and you say, what happened? And they say, my kid is not well. Next time you meet that person, say, how's your kid? And this is the thing, they feel, oh, this person listens to what I say and is interested in me. A lot of you, um, at the risk of making some of the ladies here angry, a lot of you, especially the men folk here, would identify that I am all the time accused of not listening. You're not listening. You're just watching TV or football or something. You're not listening. People appreciate if you can show that you are listening. So, and you bring it back later with these little things, and they will feel a part of that class. It's the same thing. They would want to be in that classroom because it's a comfortable atmosphere there. If you think something is good, something is exciting, don't worry. Show your excitement, express yourself, and you say, wow, this is something amazing. So if someone says, for example, I had a student who said, I've just come back from the Maldives. Now, a lot of people in this country haven't been to the Maldives. Let's say you have been to the Maldives. Don't say, oh yeah, I was there. It was nothing great. No, just say, wow, maybe you can share some pictures with us. Things like that. And I'm going to show you after this what I mean by sharing their experience and also your experience. And bring real life situations. We have read it in books. How do you bring real life situations into the classroom? I'm going to give you an example. I know that Lucina and Marcin and you were all at the IATFL conference in Gdańsk this year. Was anyone else there in this room who was there? Okay, good, because I'm going to show you a picture that I took just outside the center in Gdańsk when I was there. And I'm going to, unfortunately, you have to type your responses here. I'm going to show you the pictures. And since you are not real students, very quickly, you have to express what do you see, what's happening, and something imaginary. So here we go. It's not a very good picture. I hope you can see this. So I did it in my classroom. This is a picture I took myself, and I told them I took this picture, but I won't tell you where. So what do you think? Where is this? Who is this guy? What do you think? Is he retired? Does he have a job? And can you make a psychological profile of this guy? Okay. Does anyone want to have a go here? Write some words that you think describe this guy. What is he doing? What is his job? Okay, that's an answer I got from a lot of people. He's a farmer. He's in his garden. Okay. Anything else? How old do you think he is? Does he have a family? What time of the day is it? He's retired. Okay. See, this is how, imagine your students doing this. This is how you can, get a lot of speaking on. And then I'm going to move to the next picture. What do you think now? Would anyone like to change their earlier answers? Are you even sure it's a man? Is crossing the road in the park. Okay. Oh, yeah, see, here's someone who thinks it's a her. Okay, so where is this person going or coming from? Or do you still think this person's working in the garden? What kind of work, Małgorzata? Shopping. Okay, because of the arm position, right? Okay, let's see. Here's the next picture. Would you still say the same thing? Okay, I'll show you the final picture, the picture that I took, because the first three pictures that you saw, they were cropped by me on my phone. Here's the final picture. Tell me what happened. The guy was walking in front of me. I crossed the street and took his picture. See, the point is, he's actually a jogger, so that you don't have to think there is something pervert going on here. It's a jogger. It was cold in the morning. I remember I was wearing my coat and hat and everything. And he probably felt, he was jogging and he was dressed like those marathon runners in a sleeveless t-shirt and very short shorts. And I think, excuse me, he was cold or something, and he was passing a block, and he yelled at someone, and someone threw him this jacket from there, just put it on and continued. He was actually going towards the beach, not from the beach. But the point I'm making here is you can take your own pictures. And once I did this, I told my students that they can take a picture and cut it up like I did. And we can have this kind of a speaking game. And so they're so excited about this because they feel they're contributing to the class. And this is, that feeling of social belonging, that they are contributing to this. So they're interested. They were like, whose picture? So they divide themselves that, on this day we'll get two pictures, X and Y. Next class, someone else will bring, and so on and so forth. So you can do this with practically anything. It's good if it's a funny picture. I have lots more that in Gdańsk itself. I took about 7 pictures, which I think I'm going to put up for everyone to share. And you can do things like that. And it's not a big deal. It's very, very easy. If you look out of your window and you will see something that can interest you, and just cut it up and see if people can guess, and you will generate a lot of speaking and so on and so forth. Once you do things like this, and I'm sure there are a lot of other ideas out there, you will remove any kind of fear of going to the classroom from this. And the students will actually look forward to that. I really feel so happy when I overhear a conversation that, oh, sorry, I can't meet you on that day because we have this English class and I really want to be there. This is the most satisfying thing that I've heard. Not all the grades from observers and things like that. This is the real thing. So as far as my ideas are concerned, I've come to the end of it. I'm sure this will be available somewhere. And if anyone has any questions, this is a good time for you to ask, because then I can answer. And if later you have any questions, I'll just put up my email address and Twitter handle and everything, so you can mail to me. And I'm open to any questions if there are. If not, then I think Marcin will take over from here. So does anyone have any questions or anything? You're welcome, Luciana, as always. Okay, so thank you everyone for making the time to come here today and bearing with me, especially after my power failure. But I think it all ended okay in the end. Thank you all. Yeah, listen, I had my son work on that electrical problem. He's going to get something for me today. Okay, Marcin, are you somewhere around? Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, and we'll meet at some other webinar sometime or some other talk. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday and the weekend, and goodbye to everyone.